Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back, everybody, to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute, a podcast where we break down and celebrate the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. We're in the midst of season 1, dedicated to reanimating young Frankenstein. I'm the host. I'm Alan Sanders.
I am the co-host. I am Walt Murray.
And joining us again today, the creator and host of Jay and Silent Bob Minute, as well as the Burbs Minute, we've got Jeff Ferry. Welcome back, Jeff. Thanks for being here.
Guten Tag, Herr Doctors.
Oh, you got the doctor in the room. I can't do German so well. I can do Russian, but I can't do German.
Oddly, I do,
what's the difference?
There's a big...
I do German with a Georgia accent, so it doesn't really work out very well.
Hail, y'all. Did he just swear? No, he said hail.
Hail.
That's what I thought he said.
Oh, hail, yes.
Oh, hail, yes, he said it. You do bring an interesting dialect sometimes when it slips. There's times when you're analyzing, I'm doing the audio, I'm listening to it, I'm going, okay, this is what we talked about, and I'm like, wow, Walt's really making a point, and then all of a sudden he goes down home, and I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, get out the moon pie and the RC Cola, we're ready to go.
Did you say moonshine? All right.
No, moonshine, I'm all for that. You know what, I'm an equal opportunity drinker. Well, when we last left, we were in the midst of a conversation where the constable, the chief of police of Transylvania, Inspector Kemp, was having a conversation with the doctor and really trying to figure out what was going on in the castle. So when we start off here in minute number 60, the doctor, Dr. Frankenstein, was saying something about monsters and things like ghosts and goblins, which is where we'll begin. But Kemp will end with, but this is Transylvania. And if we didn't have anything in between, Walt, we said it weeks before. We're in Transylvania. That's where all the monsters come from. That's why we said it here. It had no bearing to the book, no bearing to anything else in the other movies. We're setting it purposely in Transylvania because that's where the boogeyman comes from.
Absolutely. And Jeff mentioned yesterday that there are certain things that you can kind of take shortcuts on, and that is one of them. Just set it in Transylvania. You know what's going on. You know where things are going. Because
we start off with monsters, ghosts, goblins. They all come from Transylvania. I bet that. Can you imagine being on the tourism board of Transylvania? Pennsylvania? Come to Transylvania. We've got monsters. We've got things that go bump in the night. We've got brain emporiums. We've got everything a growing person wants to explore.
We got Bob's Head Shop.
Bob's Head Shop.
Literal heads.
Clothes for henchmen.
Well, that's what he's got to be like Roswell. You got to lean into it. You don't hide your past. You totally embrace it. They'd be selling, fangs everywhere, and you could get your look. These are the actual bolts from Frankenstein's neck.
Oh yeah, own a pair of the bolts.
Look, there's the lake where he drowned that little girl. Let's go over there and take a selfie in front of it.
Oh my goodness gracious. You've got the little machine to make the wolf howl, so you can have your own little recording, and hey, that could be it could be like the Gatlinburg of Transylvania.
I was going to say
the redneck
kind of like
Riviera.
The t-shirt shops and the other stuff. Yeah, just lean into it. But I bet the richest guy is the guy who has the train out of town. Get out before it gets dark. Stay somewhere else.
You go back and get your shoe shined at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's right. On track 29.
On track 29. So, all right, so let's continue into this minute because we are having an interesting conversation where the doctor is now back into putting on science to battle the fears of the townspeople.
I'm stuck on Transylvania, the Gatlinburg of Europe.
I hope that's on their sign.
It is now.
And apologies to all of our Gatlinburg listeners out there. You know you're the redneck
Both
Riviera.
Of you. Yeah, no, they know. Yeah,
Why do you think
they
we
embrace
go
it? They embrace that just like Transylvania embraces all this.
Absolutely. You got it. You have no choice. Might as well.
It's Gatlinburg, the town that Branson laughs at.
I mean, let's face it. No matter what we're joking, I go there and spend a whole lot of money when I want to go hang out for 3-4 days up in the mountains and spend some stupid money.
Yeah, well, and they really do embrace it. I mean, Dollywood is right there.
Well, just to kind of recap where we last left and continuing this conversation, and Walt, as I said, I think the doctor's trying to whip out logic, science, reason, because he ended yesterday with saying, monsters, this is the 20th century. Monsters are passé, like ghosts and goblins. But then Kemp makes a very good point here, and this is that whole, well, you've got science, but you've got reality over here. And sometimes you might be thinking you're quoting science, but for the people, reality is every bit as real to them. And he says, not to the good people of this village, Herr Doctor. To them is a very real thing.
The problem is, what Dr. Frankenstein is saying is the truth in our reality, in the real world. The problem is, this movie exists in a world where 5 times Frankenstein has got up and wandered around.
He got on a rampage.
It's a little different. It's like being in The Walking Dead, like 5 seasons in, going, zombies aren't real.
Right, at some point you... Now, anybody else who has not had a zombie apocalypse would believe that. But if you're in the midst of it, you have a hard time digesting that that's not reality. And what I like about it is because, like you said that, Jeff, the irony is the doctor knows it's for real. He just reanimated a corpse. But he's trying to convince the authorities.
15 minutes ago.
Yeah,
right.
It's literally downstairs.
It's downstairs right now. Like, as we speak, Igor is rebolting him to the table. And yet, like any typical person who's trying to get out of being in trouble with the law, he's trying to out-talk the law. I'm so much smarter. I almost feel like we got an episode of Columbo here.
You know what this was reminding me of now, this scene, the way that you guys were just describing it? This reminds me of Clue, when the cop shows up at the place, and they have dead bodies in like at least 2 rooms, and they're trying to walk the cop through while they're talking with him. Like, no, everything's fine. Meanwhile, there's a dead guy like right behind the door.
It's just, I love it. I love the dynamic of what's happening right here, this whole play. And by the way, we've seen this before. Any movie where someone's trying to hide something from the cop, from the investigator, from the detective, there's always this scene where you don't know who knows what, and they're both trying to talk around the other and trying to convince the other that everything's okay, or that, we're all on the up and up here. Even when we, the audience, know he's lying through his teeth.
Yeah, there's just usually less cheating at darts during it.
Well, that's funny because the cop is the one doing the cheating.
Right. Well, and I was my notes for this minute are so wacko because of just all the stuff Inspector Kemp does, that he cheats at the game. He tries to distract Frederick, Dr. Frankenstein. He shoves the darts in his arm and walks around with them. And he just is this insane character. And yet he fits this movie so perfectly.
Right. I have no problem believing that this is a person who actually lives in this Transylvania.
Yeah, he fits this world.
Well, let's talk about this dart thing for a minute. I'm not sure why he does this. I mean, he's having a game of darts, and he knows his right arm doesn't work. And he knowingly waits for the doctor to turn his back, puts all of the darts, and Walt, until I started watching this a minute at a time, I thought he had like a little special lever on his thumb that was making the noise. I didn't realize he was thumping his hand against his own metals and making the noise with his mouth.
Yeah, no, he is he's creating this whole noise. It's such a crazy thing.
But I thought for some reason, I don't know, maybe just because the black glove against his black uniform shot in black and white, if I didn't slow it down and really analyze it, I thought like it was his thumb going.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, his thumb makes that noise. So he cheats at darts so often he had a thumb attachment installed.
Yeah, no, he's pounding away there.
I guess he's just a very competitive guy. Listen, I'm going to lay it out on the line here. I've cheated against my own family at so many things. This includes my kid. Like, if I want to win, I'm going to win. I've cheated in a game of miniature golf.
Wow.
I don't know why anybody gives me the scorecard. I am a known cheater.
It's my MO. Well, it's hysterical because he pulls that off. And I remember Barry King, the lead of BK on the Air radio show, we had him on as a guest not that long ago, where he went to see a play, and he said, a spit take is funny, but when you do 3 in a play, it's too much.
Yeah.
We only have one spit take, but it's a perfect timed one here when Gene Wilder spins around after hearing the and then all of a sudden he spits the water out like he's the next dart almost making the noise by spitting the water out. It's so unexpected to have this sort of very, slapsticky moment of him just the spit take. And then he's like incredulous, like, nice grouping.
Yeah. Well, and I've played darts a good bit. I've never been that shocked that anybody was able to throw a good group.
Yeah, but when you have your back turned and you hear the way he's
I guess so.
hyper throwing the darts, I mean, most people, I don't know if you play darts, I do. You sort of take a few seconds in between to kind of make sure you're lining up your shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was like the machine gun of darts.
Yeah, if you're throwing them like that, you're lucky all of them are hitting the board.
Right.
Well, and Dr. Frankenstein had just done the same thing. His were like one right on top of another. It was like machine gunning into the board.
Yeah, that's how people throw things in movies.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's
what I love about his spit take is he doesn't do the spit take that all of us normally would do, where you do the spit take and you blow the water out of your mouth and it comes out in a big mist. He just shoots it out like it's a little bit coming out of a hose.
Yeah,
just like a little
stream.
Yeah, it's like a fountain.
Well, and you also have Kemp's weird dance as he stabs the darts into the board, and then he kind of like tiptoes back to the line. I mean, this is such a crazy scene.
Now, did you notice in the background that this castle has two separate giant fireplaces with this little dartboard set up in between both rooms?
I did not notice that.
If you look when the inspector walks up to the board to grab the darts and sticks them in his arm and he's chatting with the doctor, this really heavy subject they're talking about, while all this shenanigans is going on, you see a fire lit in the background against one fireplace that has some words over it that looks like something of von Frankenstein. And then you've got Gene Wilder sitting in front of a different fireplace while he's got his back turned to the game and he's looking into the fireplace. So two different fireplaces going on at the same time, one room apart.
Well, one of the things that it kind of struck me is you have this really great ornate room and castle and a dartboard, basically.
Dartboard in the middle of a castle.
In the living room.
And not like some old-timey, ornate, awesome wooden dartboard. No, it's like some crap you would buy at Walmart.
Right. This is like your intro dartboard to put in your own little, like in the garage.
It kind of came
It's
out
one step above being a magnetic dartboard.
It's like out of some guy's man cave.
No, the darts are definitely different than I remember. But is this how the darts would have been in a modern dart set in maybe the mid 70s?
Maybe.
Because these are huge.
They look really big. They look like lawn darts.
You remember lawn darts? We called them jarts. Growing up, jarts. They were basically...
I don't know. Nobody ever played the game. We just threw them at each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we wonder why they don't make them anymore.
Yeah. They had to be one of the most dangerous things ever sold.
Well, when we...
Everyone who's under 30 now is Googling lawn darts to see what it is.
Lawn darts, yeah.
What kind of lunatic game is this?
Picture a miniature, I would say miniature javelins, but they were basically like giant darts that you would throw up and try to get into rings on the lawn.
And the game was rarely played by anybody sober. So you have these like 8-pound gigantic javelins that you're hunking down the yard while absolutely plastered. What could possibly go wrong?
That's usually how most Southern stories start. Hey, y'all, watch this.
Yes. Probably the place I've played the most is at my family reunion, so it is horribly dangerous.
All right, so with this minute here, because we've got this dynamic going on here, it's the clock in the background shows it's around 10:30 at night that they're having this conversation. So either they had a really late town hall meeting, or the inspectors come by a different night, but it's still kind of late for a sit-down chat.
I mean, I could see a town hall meeting starting at 7 or 8 o'clock, not getting out till 10, and then he gets there shortly after. I don't think he really cares. He would have showed up at 2 in the morning and not cared less about it, I bet.
Well, the timeline on this is really a mess, because one of the townsfolk does say,
it's in a script outtake.
That's it, right? It was in a script outtake. But I was going to say that somebody had said that they had seen all the lights and all the electricity. So no, you're right. There is continuity in the actual film. As far as this goes,
it's
in my brain that the continuity
the script is all over the place.
The script
when it comes to timelines. Do you think, in the midst of this conversation, who do you think's got the upper hand at this point? Does anybody have the upper hand?
Oh,
No pun intended with Inspector Kemp.
yeah. Kemp has no hand. I think that there's kind of a battle going on here. I think that there is, and I think it's going on in two places. It's going on in the dark game, but it's also going on in their conversation. They are definitely feeling each other out, and Dr. Frankenstein has the most to lose, I think, because he definitely does not want to be found out. And Inspector Kemp is really trying to figure out what's going on here.
Jeff, what do you think? What do you feel like anybody's got the upper hand right now?
I think at this point it's balanced, because I don't think if, Kemp's a caricature, but I think if he was like a real policeman, at this point, he doesn't know for sure. He has no evidence that Frankenstein's up to anything. The main strike against him right now is what his name is that he's a Frankenstein. He's a Frankenstein. So I think this is what this is. He's trying to feel this guy out. I bet when he walks out of this place and leaves, he's like, that guy's up to something. That guy is 100% up to something. He might not be making a dead guy downstairs, but he's doing something crazy in that place.
There's something going on here. And one thing about cops and law enforcement folks is they trust their gut. And you're right. His gut's screaming at him that something's up here.
Yeah, you can't walk out of this conversation and be like, oh, that's an upstanding citizen right there.
No. No. And we also know, too, that Inspector Kemp has the ear of the village. And, everybody turned to him. The town elders said, well, the person we haven't heard from is Inspector Kemp. And they were all ears to hear what he had to say. And he kind of calmed the crowd down by saying, well, I'm going to go up and have a conversation with him. And
right.
Which, if he would have come back and said, you know what, this guy's a straight arrow, he's good to go. He's American. He's not a real Frankenstein. He's going to go home. I think that's it. Movie's over.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we're not going to have a mob. He is really the key to where the crowd goes.
Now, had the monster, which, spoiler, we're moving ahead, had the monster not gotten out, do you think by the time we're done this conversation, and it won't be until next week that we finish it, but do you think that Kemp is pleased at least with what he's hearing so far? Do you think he believes him?
I think he...
Because I get the sense
I don't know that he
does.
believes him, but it's one of those like, sure, I believe you probationary, and then I'm going to keep a nice close eye on you. I'm going to stop in from time to time. I'm going to keep an eye on what you're doing. I hate to make this comparison, but he's going to get the treatment of somebody basically that just came out of prison. I'm just like, yeah, I'm hoping that you're going to be good, but I'm going to keep an eye on you.
Yeah, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
See, I think he does. Okay, I think that's what happens here. I think by the time we're done, and again, we'll be chatting about this into Monday, into next week's episode. But I do think there's a couple of things happening here that make me believe that when Inspector Kemp decides to throw the doctor off by cheating a little bit and then barking into his ear, I think if Dr. Frankenstein had not been affected by that, he'd been like, okay, you're putting something on. You should be affected by me barking at you. You're throwing the darts all over the place. He's like, okay, this is what you would normally do if I was trying to throw you off your game. So I'm cheating to throw you off your game. If I've thrown you off your game, then you're obviously not hiding anything because I would have thrown you off your game. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
In some kind of a young Frankenstein logic kind of way.
Well, I kind of stopped listening as soon as you started talking, but yes, I'm going to assume that what you're saying is exactly right.
It checks out.
I voluntarily came to Walt and said, do you want to do a podcast with me? And invariably, I find myself asking why.
I'm kind of the Igor to your Dr. Frankenstein.
You are my Igor.
And so many times you wanted to wring my neck.
Sit down. No, up here.
Exactly. I was sitting on the floor when we first started.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is he's throwing the doctor off his game to see if he can throw the doctor off his game. And because the doctor is flustered, because the doctor... I don't think he thinks he's hiding anything. If he had been too perfect, if his answers had been too precise, maybe he would have been more suspicious. But he's like, okay, I was able to throw the doctor. He was throwing darts all over the place. He's just, it's obvious I was able to rattle him. And if he was hiding something, I would have found it out.
Right. But I also don't think that he's like the constable earlier who just accepts at face value what he says.
Not the
and
night
walks
watchman?
off. Yeah.
The night constable? Yeah.
Yeah, the constable. Yeah. I think that, he was kind of a happy-go-lucky, I'll just take you at your word. Oh, you're the American that I've heard of you. Yeah. Inspector Kemp, Dr. Kemp, good grief. What is wrong with my brain? I guess that's a long discussion.
Wait a
minute. That's a door I shouldn't have opened.
Move along.
But I think that he is accepting what he's saying to a degree, but I think he still is very suspicious.
Well, here's something I think interesting. Remember I started off saying that the doctor here, Dr. Frankenstein, was trying to use science and logic, and we're in the 20th century. Who believes in monsters and ghosts and goblins? Here's what I find interesting. If you're paying attention to the dialogue, while they're having all of this kind of wacky dart game, they're trying to have like this weird who's going to cheat who and who's getting ready, Inspector Kemp actually makes a great comeback when Frankenstein says, I wouldn't think an intelligent person like you would fall for all of this superstitious rot. Kemp, who of course makes him throw his first arrow or dart awry, says, it's not superstition that worries me, doctor. It's genes and chromosomes. Mm-hmm. He's basically saying, you keep saying it's the science, but that's what scares us. The science.
Yeah. And even though Dr. Frankenstein has said monsters are passé, well, you can say that, but I'm a man who needs to see proof.
Also, if the original Frankenstein proved anything, it's who was the monster? It was Dr. Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
Like, you could be a monster without being 7 feet tall and, ripping people's heads off.
No, how do you blame the creation for what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's abnormal.
It's abnormal.
And it's not its fault that it's abnormal.
No, not at all. I do like how much is happening in this one scene. You've got the dichotomy of a crazy dartboard with this castle. You've got the inspector acting like a loon with Gene Wilder trying to pretend like everything's normal. We know there's a monster downstairs. He's saying there's no such thing. That's superstition. The inspector turns around and is saying, no, we've dealt with your kind before. It's the science that bothers us. I'd rather have superstition because superstition we know doesn't work. We've seen what your genes and chromosomes have done in the past, or your family has done in the past. It's a great moment, actually.
It really is.
Completely underneath this really goofball dart game scene taking place before our eyes.
Yeah, I think it's also he's trying to throw it in the doctor's face because the doctor's trying to say, basically trying to say, I'm a man of science, I'm a doctor, look at me, I'm so smart. And the guy's throws out genes and chromosomes, listen, I'm not an idiot. I know what it is. I know what science is. I'm not some person out in the woods that's scared of the moon when it comes up.
And even when the doctor when Dr. Frankenstein tries to kind of play it off and say, rubbish, oh, come on, that's nonsense. And of course, Kemp also trying to throw him off his dart game, but he says, well, you might say, but this is Transylvania. And he yells the Transylvania, making him throw the dart awry, and you are a Frankenstein. He's making a point that, once again, the rules that you might think applied back when you were, at Johns Hopkins University lecturing some med students, the rules in Transylvania are different.
I also, I think that if this was a series, if we were looking at a TV series or a series of movies versus just the one cinematic piece that we have, I think Inspector Kemp would become a much deeper character. I think there's a lot to Inspector Kemp that we're getting a little glimpse of, but we don't really get to see played out because he comes so late to the movie.
No, and as a comedy, he's there for one specific thing. He's there to represent law and order.
He is.
As wacky as the version of Law and Order is for the folks of Transylvania or where we are, he still represents that side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, this is a completely lunatic town. And he fits in perfectly. He is their perfect law enforcement person. And later on, he's got some awesome parts that come. But I think there's more to Inspector Kemp than we get to see.
Well, as we begin to wind down minute number 60 here, I don't want to just race to the end because there may be some things that we missed. So, Jeff, anything that you have in your notes here in minute 60, this whole conversation that will continue on unto Monday morning?
I just can't wait till the next time I'm going to play darts because I'm going to try to cheat like Kemp does. I'm going to try to get whoever I'm playing against to turn their back and start doing, oh, look at that.
and shove the darts in your arm.
I may bypass.
Hey, is your arm bleeding? No, I'm fine.
I'm good.
I think I might bypass the whole putting 6 darts in my arm all at once.
Maybe I'll just carry them.
Yeah, there you go. I don't like getting a shot, let alone that. So, what about you, Walt? Anything in your notes that you've got that bears repeating or discussing again?
You know, this was a topic of conversation the last time we saw Inspector Kemp, but I do think that his beard is different on each side. So I think there's just a little variance, but that is, he's got some weird chops going there.
I guess it's something that I never really pay as much attention to as I do the Gene Wilder mustache constantly morphing depending on where he is in the timeline of the movie.
Yeah, there are a lot of hair issues in this film.
Well, I think Inspector Kemp's is fake.
Yeah, well, I would hope so.
I mean, he could have grown that. People used to grow things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I read Moby Dick once. Jeff, because we only had you here for these couple of minutes, didn't get really a chance to ask you your thoughts of just, in general, Young Frankenstein. This gives us a chance to hear from you. Where does this rank in your comedies and in terms of the pantheon of movies that you would call some of the go-tos if you just have nothing else to watch on a Friday night?
Like I said before, it's of the three main Wilder movies, it's the one that I probably watch the least, but maybe the best one. I probably only revisit it every year to two. Meanwhile, I probably watch Willy Wonka every friggin' week because my daughter loves it. And I mean, it's one of those movies if she's like, I want to watch this. I'm like, yes, let's watch that because I swear to God, if I have to watch anything else on the Disney Channel again, I'm going to crash through a plate glass window. And
dude, I'm
not a terrible enough parent to have her watch Blazing Saddles.
So. Not yet. Well,
yeah.
I've got 4 girls, and 3 of them now in college, 1 in high school. But yeah, that slow matriculation away from watching, things like Barney to graduating to cartoons to then getting into these. Now Daddy gets to show you some of the movies I grew up with. That's just an awesome thing as a parent to have.
Yeah, or just let's wait till your mother's not here so I can watch the stuff she won't let me watch with you. Which at one point was Willy Wonka. Now she's 10 now, but when she was younger, because the first time. Listen, my wife, and I'll never forgive her, had her watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when she was little.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That horrific remake.
It's horrible.
Well, surprisingly, she A, hated it, and B, cried when the girl got turned into a... Oh, God, what is it?
Blueberry?
Blueberry, thank you.
Yes.
I almost said a snozberry. That's a totally different thing. And then I'm like, no, we're going to watch the good version of it. I had to sit there. I had to try to talk my daughter into it for 3 months until we watched it. She watched it. She loved it. And now we watch it every week for the last 6 years.
Well, the one good thing about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is that it emphasizes how awesome the original was.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That is its only purpose.
It is.
To be like,
it only serves to show you how much better Willy Wonka is.
Yeah. It's like that meme that has the ship's hull sticking out of the water, and it says that some people are only meant to serve as a warning to others.
As I say this sometimes, you're never truly worthless. You can always serve as a bad example.
Yes, exactly right.
I think the best thing that you could say about Young Frankenstein is you could take any 5-minute block out of it and play it as a 5-minute clip of this is how you shoot a comedy.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. First 5 minutes, last
agree.
5 minutes, any 5 minutes in the middle. There you go. This is how you shoot a comedy.
I think you could expand that to you could take any 5 minutes and use it as an example of how to shoot a comedy, how to shoot a monster movie. I think there's a lot out of this movie that is really just valuable to anybody coming up in the film industry. I think that this should be studied. This should be used as an example of just an amazing movie all the way around.
Well, even just our discussion today, all the different layers, when you start unpacking it and realizing how much exists in this scene, some of it people may have never even thought about before, but sometimes it just triggers something underneath. That's why I think we go back and think of these as classics. There's a reason why I'm going to go watch this over and over and over, and I'm probably not putting American Pie in as my all-time favorite comedy.
What?
Yeah, it's just not up there in my...
Obviously not, because the favorite would be American Pie, The Naked Mile. That is obviously the superior film.
It's like when we had Tom Taylor on. There's a reason why you only do Caddyshack, but you don't talk about Caddyshack 2.
Yeah,
they just weren't man enough to do Caddyshack 2. That's the only reason why they didn't do it.
No. Have you ever seen Caddyshack 2?
I've seen Caddyshack 2. Listen,
okay, it's
when
horrific.
You replace Rodney Dangerfield with Jackie Mason, you are in deep trouble.
Yes. No argument here.
I still just wonder why the studio said yes to that.
Because they saw a money-making machine by putting a number 2 and running a sequel, and that still exists today.
Yeah, they said put a number 2 in there, Sure, we've downgraded it almost literally every single acting position, but it'll be fine.
Acting, writing, I mean, everything about that movie was inferior.
It's it's almost not worth talking about.
No, it's not.
Much like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes.
Not worth talking about. And that's the thing. You know the sad thing about it? I've always been a Tim Burton fan. Even some of his weaker films, I still enjoy his his style for filmmaking. And I've always liked Johnny Depp.
He's got like that Zack Snyder thing where even when his stuff's bad, it'll look good.
But I've liked Johnny Depp, and just something about when the two of them came together on this particular version of the movie, I said, and it's not because I was so, stuck on the past or I'm nostalgic. I mean, I'm not like some of the friends we have, Walt. I mean, I love the new Star Trek movies. I can say that with a straight face.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. I'm not one of these people like, if it's not Kirk, it's not Star Trek. I mean, I love the good Star Trek.
Blasphemer?
Right. No, I love all Star Treks. But when I go watch Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, and I've only seen it twice. I went back a second time because I'm like, surely there's something worth seeing. There's not. I don't even own the movie. It's that bad.
Well, and I try
and I own
to
bad
go
movies.
Yeah, I do too. I try to go into every movie with the attitude of I want to be entertained. And that's how I kind of go into TV shows. I just want to be entertained. I'm generally not somebody who goes in and picks it apart and has a negative attitude. I'm a pretty easy person to entertain most of the time. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was not entertaining to me. It kind of made me mad, I think.
I was going to say,
when I left.
I found myself irked. Like I was in a bad mood.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you screw this up?
Yeah, and Johnny Depp is not my favorite actor, but he surprises me in some things, and I love him in some movies. I mean, there's some movies where he makes the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That movie, to me, there was nothing redeeming about it.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, they say about, Kevin Smith says about Johnny Depp, he always takes big swings. The problem is when you take big swings, sometimes you have big misses.
Yes,
That's true.
you do.
That's
yes,
true.
you do.
I mean, sometimes you got Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Sometimes you're 7 movies in on Pirates of the Caribbean and owning your own island. So,
yeah. Well, and Pirates of the Caribbean, I think, is one that will forever redeem Johnny Depp for me.
Certainly. On this note, I'm going to pull it around. We like being entertained. And if you like the entertainment of talking about some of your favorite movies, Jeff, why don't we tell people about one of the Movies by Minutes podcasts you've got if you're a Kevin Smith fan?
that was a good job. Way to bring that in for a landing. That was pretty good stuff. I do the Jay and Silent Bob Minute, which we've already covered, the other black and white classic of Clerks. It's just like Young Frankenstein, except a lot more F words and a lot more talk about Star Wars. We're setting up now to do Mallrats. It's pretty much a lot of the same characters are back, except they hired professional actors for this one. So that's always a step up. And you get to see Ben Affleck when he was fat and young. But if you're looking for a movie that we did that was more like Young Frankenstein, we covered the Burbs Minute for the first time. It's a lot like Young Frankenstein. It's got really creepy neighbors that are Germanic of some sort. They have one of them is a doctor. You got Dr. Klopek. Something weird's going on in their basement. A lot of parallels.
It sounds like Alan's neighborhood.
It's not an Inspector Kemp, although they do have a crazy military guy that lives in their neighborhood that kind of serves the same purpose.
Definitely a lot of fun to check out, especially if you're one of those inside the perimeter or if you're a city folk kind of person and realize what kind of wackiness might exist out there in them burbs.
Yeah, the Burbs are a crazy place.
Yeah, that's where we live. Walt, if somebody wants to come learn a little bit more about where we do live in terms of our Movies by Minute podcast, where can they go?
There are a lot of places you can go, and probably the best place to go right now is our website, which is thewilderride.com. From there, you can link up to any of the other places you can find us, including Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes, which we would really appreciate it if you'd go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. We've mentioned this a couple other times. There's some funky, crazy algorithm that doesn't push you to the top, doesn't help other people find you unless you're getting 5-star ratings and people are making comments. So we would love it if you would go there. We love constructive criticism or constructive comments, but if you just want to say, hey, look, we like snowboarding, great. Just make a comment so other people can find our podcast. And if you really want to be a part of the group, go to patreon.com. You'll find some great ways to interact with us, to be a part of our team here, and to help us out with some of the production cost.
And with that said, I want to give a quick shout out. Today's episode brought to you by our associate producer, Tara Bain, who has given us that nice tier of associate producer level of support. We appreciate Tara for being out there and supporting the Wilder Ride. You can be out here as well if you want to step up and pick a tier to support our show. We appreciate it. Tara, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Tara.
Come back Monday because we are continuing the conversation between Inspector Kemp and the good doctor, where we will continue with watching the doctor throw darts anywhere but at the dartboard, and we will end with Dr. Frankenstein reminding the good officer the front doors here are always open. Jeff, thank you so much for being here and part of our Wilder ride this week.
It's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Well, until next week, Walt, where we return to Inspector Kemp.
I so wish that I could do Inspector Kemp.
And don't take a shot on your carpet.